there is more credible information that Paige Bueckers might actually just pull an Eli Manning and refuse to play for the Dallas Wings. So this is not new news, but there is a new credible source saying the same thing. Annie Costabile, who everybody by now I'm sure knows is one of the biggest WNBA news breakers out there right now. And she has sources. Not to mention another credible source, Howard Megdal, saying the same exact thing.
Paige Bueckers might have to be convinced to go there. It seems to kind of be the rumblings that you hear is that's going to take some convincing.
I have reported over at the 9 newsletter that there is a widely held belief around the league that she is going to go full Eli Manning.
Yeah.
And Paige did not seem very excited to be going to Dallas, as after the draft happened, she was interviewed in a post-game and she didn't even watch the draft.
Lottery at all, or? Nah, I actually, people think I'm lying. I actually didn't watch it. It was giving me too much anxiety, so I just decided to, whatever was going to happen, regardless if I was watching or not. So I just kind of, let the things happen and figure it out after. As you have found out by now, Dallas gets that number 1 overall pick, a pick that everyone thinks they're going to use to take you. How do you feel about that? I honestly don't want to get complacent. I want to stay humble, stay grounded, stay in the moment. Nothing in the future is guaranteed, so just taking every moment as it is.
I don't think we should read too much into this, except just looking at it, it didn't seem like she was super pumped about the Dallas Wings, and there were a lot of rumors about how she was talking to people about wanting to go to Los Angeles for the marketing and the brand availability there that would fit her personality and what she wants to do and maybe what she wants to do outside of basketball. But she was laughing. She was being really cute. But again, to me, and just to me, it didn't look like she was super pumped, and she did look like she was just kind of trying to play it safe and not say too much. But again, I don't want to assume what she was saying, so I felt like she was just trying to not talk about the subject. But let's get into part of what was in the article that Annie Costabile wrote for the Chicago Sun-Times. There is an uncertainty regarding who will be available at the number 2 spot in the 2025 draft. Paige Bueckers could technically end up returning to UConn and for her final year of eligibility. She would be basically a super senior. If Bueckers pulls an Eli Manning and refuses to play for the Wings, they could end up dealing the number 1 pick for a lofty price tag. The Storm are now in a position to make a substantial offer to trade up 1 place in the draft, adding Bueckers to a team that includes Skylar Diggins-Smith, Ezi Magbegor, God, I love Ezi Magbegor, and is expected to re-sign Gabby Williams and Nneka Ogwumike. Not only keeps them in contention, it also helps them evade any lengthy rebuilds in the coming years, which, to be completely honest, I did foresee the Storm going into maybe a bit of a rebuild. The Sparks had no solid path towards trading up in the draft for Bueckers. Getting Plum essentially gives them a number 1 overall pick in her prime. Plum was drafted 1st overall by the San Antonio... Okay, she was drafted 1st overall. Anyway, so I'm not totally sure how I feel about this. And I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but it feels a bit privileged and sets kind of a weird precedent for acts like this potentially in the future, which would make the draft itself subject to any good player that wants to go somewhere else to just refuse, like say Juju Watkins when she comes into the draft. But let's just say that this Eli Manning situation does go through and she does refuse to play with the Dallas Wings. Her sister from another mister, Nneka Mule, is on the Seattle Storm. I'm sure she would love to play with Nneka Mule. And honestly, that lineup that they talked about, Skylar Diggins-Smith, Ezi Magbegor, like Skylar is getting to the age where they need to find somebody to replace her that is solid. And the transition, but I feel like the transition between Skylar and Paige would be perfect because Skylar could be showing her the ropes and Paige could just come in and naturally just start taking over. Though I think that they might start Paige a little bit more than they started like Nneka Mule, for example, last season. I know a lot of people were yelling free Nneka Mule, but Paige Bueckers is a different story, I think. And I think the Seattle Storm are in a different position to where they aren't necessarily the power team that they were last season. Not that they were exactly a power team, but they were very good. And most of the very good teams in the WNBA don't start their rookies in every game. Paige Bueckers being an exception to pretty much every rule in this situation, she has a bit of like a Caitlin Clark-esque aura to her in that she brings eyes, she brings marketability, she brings a lot of things, but maybe they start Paige off ball and then she starts integrating more to the point guard because she is versatile in that way. But it would be smart for Seattle to start cultivating that replacement for Skylar Diggins-Smith as she's 35. She might be 34. In the same article, there is, however, more details about the LA-Seattle negotiations, and that Seattle tried to get Rikia from LA, but LA held firm. So why would Paige want to leave? Well, Dallas has a history of not necessarily developing their players and them being kind of unhappy and wanting to leave. If you just look at this past season, we have Natasha Howard requesting to leave, Paige Bueckers requesting to leave. Their facilities are not great. Their arena is very small. People don't really show up for them as much, but that is changing. They are definitely getting a new arena. I don't know if they're getting new facilities yet, but I would assume that there were so many people hyped up for this. The Dallas Wings, the fan base, their season tickets sold out so fast, thinking Paige Bueckers was going to be heading to Dallas. Arike posts on her socials saying that she fell to her knees when the announcement was made. There was just a lot of excitement, and it almost feels like Paige Bueckers deciding that she doesn't want to be on the Dallas Wings is it's kind of a disappointment to a lot of fans. I know that it won't look good for her if she does openly pull in Eli Manning, but I also don't think it would look good on the Wings to keep a player that doesn't want to be on the team. So this is almost like a no-win situation, which is why I think it is the only thing that Paige can do to keep quiet about it, because anything that she would say would be heavily scrutinized. And I can only imagine that there are lots of talks behind the scenes already going on. And Annie Costabile and Howard Megdal, they have sources. It is important to note that this is all speculation, but just because of who is reporting on this, I look at this with a little more seriousness. But what do you guys think? Do you think Paige Bueckers should pull in Eli Manning? Do you think that she's coming from a position of a bit of privilege with that? Or should she just go back to UConn and become a super senior? Because it also doesn't look like UConn's going to win that chip this season.